be going. Plus, we have a situation where members of parliament from Ngaira's place, that is Western, were yesterday at State House in a crisis talks with the president. We'll be telling you the reason why and what came out of it. The IBC team is now in and they've been passed by parliament. So we finally have an IBC. And then guess what? Matiang'i has quit his job at the World Bank, meaning he's now coming back to start doing campaigns. So it's just going to be a lot of stuff happening. All right? Okay, so you heard me mention him. George Ngaira is with us in the studio. Karibu sana, George.
Thank you very much for having me, Fred.
Today we have a gentleman from Masako. His name is Josephat Wambua. Welcome, Josephat.
Very much good.
Okay, and we also have Matthew Asonga with us in the studio.
Thank you, Fred, for having me.
For me, I think the most critical thing as we think like leaders, the education of a country is so critical. And most developed countries make sure that access to education is free.
Absolutely.
So that everybody is empowered to live and be able to operate on this realm of earth. If you go to the Scandinavian countries, the best brains are employed as teachers.
Yeah.
So that the best brains are the ones who are training the rest of the nation. In developing countries, we take the D, the C, and we put them there.
Yeah.
So it gives you a focus of where this thing is going. Now, if you look at the budget estimates, the education system of the country is in a mess. And now the government has been slashing the budget on education. And you wonder, where are we going? Ngaira, because you sit in the budget committee.
Yeah, absolutely.
Where in the world are we going with this?
You know, Fred, those nations that you call developed are developed because they've been developed by people who are developed themselves. You understand? It's developed minds that develop nations. And if the people are not developed, then you have the crisis of lack of skills and etc. That's why you find countries that cannot develop themselves. Fred, it's unfortunate that our president continues to expose himself to some very easy political targets like those ones, because free education, Fred, the very least you can give any human being is you want him to eat, be able to go to be healthy, and be able to go to school. That's the very basic that any government in the world has to do for its people. And that's why those countries called rich, they're rich because they're able to provide that almost for free for their people. So the business of the guarantees of the fact that for as long as you're born in that country, you're going to eat, have access to free medical services, and then be able to be educated is guaranteed, is what separates them from us. President William Ruto once again is heading downstream, and as far as his leadership is concerned. And I think education, which remains a very critical sector in as far as the development of this country is concerned, because how else do we expect Kenya to develop if we do not develop the people who are supposed to develop it? It can't work. And I think this president is going the wrong direction.
Free education came up. President Mwai Kibaki, during his reign, that's when free education came into play. And we saw, you know, I think it was Clinton who was the US president then. And he said he really wanted to meet President Kibaki because this was it
was a game changer.
It was a game changer in Kenya. And now there's talks that children will start paying school fees and start paying for the exam. It has not happened since Kibaki's. Yes. What is your thought on the direction the government is heading with this?
I can say that these people are messing us, because the fact that we are is like we are going to the deep, being lost to quarry. Because as you can see, the way they are directing us, or the way the driver of a car or of a bus driving it, either recklessly or being drunk, may cause accident on this journey. So, in this way that they are driving this government, they are messing it. For example, the debt that we have may cause some things that our facts or our rights may not come into real way or real reality, whatever that. As I was trying to observe yesterday, I have a certain book over there which is known as the seven years of straight lies and false promises.
7 years of
Straight lies.
Now 12. It's 12 years of straight lies and false promises.
You're saying 12?
He's saying 7, but I'm saying it's actually now 7 of William Ruto's straight lies and false
connecting
promises.
from Mr.
From the time he served as
From the time he served as
president.
deputy president.
Yes.
Now, Uhuru's Sera, it was about to build 500,000 houses and free education, whatever. So, I came to realize that it was true. There was straight lies and false promises, because he could not even fulfill even one, to build even one house.
Who, Uhuru?
Mr. Uhuru.
Yes.
Now that Mr. Ruto is connected to do it, while they were there in Ebu, he said that na ile kazi uliniachia hii is affordable housing, napambana nao mbaya sana. But how comes that in the time of Uhuru, even if he was like in Mr. Ruto, everything was going well.
During Uhuru's time.
Kazi mtaani. Highways, corridors zilikuwa zinaendelea, kazi zote za mshirika zilikuwa zinaendelea. Then after that, Ruto took over, everything
went down.
Yes. So
you're saying it's just lies and promises that have not been fulfilled?
Yes.
But what is the possibility that when he took over a really messed up system, and he has to charge it before it starts running? Because, and me mostly I'm concerned about first and foremost education. When during Uhuru's term, I can give you an example. I've had my daughters in university. So one during Uhuru's term, one during Ruto's term. During Uhuru's term, I was paying 17,000 shillings. During this term, I'm paying close to 145. So, you're wondering...
What changed?
What changed in the same country?
Thank you, Fred. You know, it's sad. I think...
and now, you're going to have children paying for school fees and exams.
You know what, Fred? Kenyans need to wake up and ask serious questions about this government and our future. It's sad that we're in a country whereby the government will prioritize to build affordable housing, which we don't know whether they are affordable or who is owning these houses, to who and to where and to whose benefit, rather than prioritize education, which is a very key element of every citizen. And
basic need.
And if you look at our government today, both two key sectors that determine the life of every human being, that is health and education, is now scrambling. Okay?
Yeah, health is struggling.
Health is struggling. Education now is going to the trenches. You know, that can tell you the kind of leadership we have. And when you listen to these leaders talking, they will talk about affordable housing. How do we need affordable? Where do you build an house for someone who cannot even afford medical facilities? And I want to remind the Gen Zs, because on June 25th, they came out in large numbers with one thing in mind to change government, that the knowledge they are enjoying today, or whatever thing they are enjoying today, that the knowledge they have is as a result of free education that was introduced to them by President Kibaki. Remember, the free education was, the first time we experienced free education was in 2003, when President Kibaki took over. And I want to believe that the generation, the Gen Z, that was the time now they were joining the pre-primary schools, the nurseries and class 1. And even some who have dropped out of school because of so many school fees, they have to come back to school. Fred, I remember, in my village, there was
what's the name of your village? Can we find it on Google Maps?
Fred,
okay,
Fred, I understand, but I come from the mighty Nyanza region, so that one can tell you. And I come from Migori County.
Yes.
where we don't. So
Yes.
there were so many people, even those who have dropped out of school so many years ago.
Yes.
We had so many elderly being nicknamed Kibaki because at least they were nicknamed Kibaki after they've been out of school for a very long time, and now they decided to come back to school because of the free primary education.
Yes.
Now this is what President William Ruto is messing up. Not only are we struggling with the free primary education, but we are struggling with the entire education system, right from primary up to university. Okay. Now we say
the entire system is struggling.
Is struggling. Now the budget estimate does not are saying, and yesterday I listened to CS Ogembo being questioned by the National Assembly, is admitting that they are even struggling to fund this education. But you ask yourself, why is it struggling to fund education when we have bursaries from MCA to governor? Why can't they, if that was the problem, why can't they just do away with this, all those bursaries and scholarship and thing, consolidate this fund, put them in one account, then say we have free education?
And these renovations, provisions that were made of 2 billion shillings
Exactly.
for renovation of State House
for what?
and deputy
Do we
president
need to renovate a
residence.
State House for 2 billion shillings when we are struggling to have with education and health sectors? Do we even need to invest? Yesterday I was listening to President William Ruto promising the governor of Siaya of building around 13,000 units in Siaya County. Why do we need that? Is it a priority as this time? Do we prioritize building houses, or we are prioritize the education of our kids? Okay, so I think, Fred, as we talk about leadership, it is high time that as a people and as a nation, we need to wake up and think beyond our tribal line and beyond our political parties and rescue our nation. Because if by any chance we decided to let President Ruto go for another term, maybe by the time we are going into 2032, we will not even have a country.
You see, for me, and this is very critical, Ngaira.
Yes.
Education, if you mess up education, look at countries that are not literate.
Yeah.
Countries that are not literate basically just go down.
Yeah.
So if there was anything that we needed to ensure, have security, health, and education.
And education.
Yeah.
Education is the inheritance you give to your children to be able to operate in their world.
And even a key enabler of the first two.
Yes.
Because it's the brains that then are able to grow food and then be able to ensure there's good health.
So generally, if you close up education, then it's
you've
like
messed
you've
up
closed
the
up the
country.
entire nation.
Yes.
Fred, I've said this times and again that this country has enough for all of us. It's just that we are not addressing the governance issues that we need to work on to be able to correct the way we run our country, Fred. You know, Kenyans went to the ballot and they voted for a new constitution that have consistently said it does not need any further amendments. We just need to implement what is already written in that 2010 constitution, where they defined where government expenditure is supposed to go to, and the functions that were specific, that were supposed to both be executed at the national level and also be executed at the county level. And that's how we ended up with actually 20 state departments, 20 ministries. And they only factored 2 more to accommodate the AG and the head of public service, because they were critical elements of that execution plan. And that's why you had a maximum of 22 cabinet secretaries. That was done to be able to avert the situation we had in 2007, where we ended up with a grand coalition government of 44 ministers. You remember?
Yeah.
And they said it was just not affordable for a small country like ours. Kenya is just a country of just about $120 billion, just about $100 billion, the GDP. The US is sitting at $21 trillion and going up. And yet it only has 20 state departments. How can we afford 58 state departments? It's just not feasible. You understand?
Yeah.
And when you look at that, because the designers, the framers of the executive structure at the time when we were doing the constitution, spent time and studied other countries. They went to the UK, they went to the US to see how government structures operate like, for them to end up with the proposal that they had. Fred, if we can address our expenditure, we would never have to surcharge Kenyans to pay for education. Because then, outrightly, it means out of 58 state departments, it means we don't need about 30 of them. Actually, 38. we can do away with 38 and only remain with 20 state departments, because there are some departments which are just policy-making institutions, and they do not need the countrywide infrastructure, because those functions are already being executed at the county level by the CECs. What we just need to work on is the policy and the budget estimates, so that once it's approved, then it goes to the counties for the CECs to be able to implement that, to implement those functions, so that there's no repetition. Fred, we have the funds to be able to fund education and ensure from primary to the university today. Fred, back then in your times, you only had 1 or 2 universities.
Yes.
Fred, we have 47 today.
Yes.
And we have another private university, so we're almost 60 universities. Today, it means we can get as many students into public education institutions with an infrastructure that has already been invested in. It's not something that would have to start doing today. You understand? To be able to guarantee this education. But unfortunately, because we have a government that is continuously not listening to the people, I'm shocked that this president is expecting poor Kenyan parents to start paying school fees and yet still remain popular. I don't know who advises this president. I think there's an assumption that he thinks Kenyans are stupid. And I think this president must know that at some point in time he will realize that we might be poor, but we're not necessarily stupid. Because education to me is a very key element into the growth of our country. And as far as the development is concerned, in the economy and every aspect of it, you have to develop the human beings so the human beings can develop the country.
Yes.
When you fail to develop the human beings, then they lack the skills.
Yes.
It can't.
Yes.
Because that's how it goes.
Yes.
Now, if you make it very expensive, remember you've mentioned President Kibaki when he brought in the free education, which was a NAC manifesto then, that they were going to make education free in this country. Fred, the number of students that joined school the following year was massive, because now it was very free.
Yes. Yes.
That even that the government had now to struggle with the issue of transition into high school, because the number of students that had came out of KCPE were too many more than the infrastructure that we had in the high schools. That now they had to begin to congest people in school so that to be able to accommodate them. That was a success rate. It was an indication that the decision by government to make sure that education is free has borne results, because you can deny me anything else, right? But give me education.
Don't deny me education. Yes.
My brother here, Wamba, was telling us here just before we came in that he didn't get an opportunity to really go to school so much. But if there's one thing that somebody can tell him and he just stands up and obeys immediately, if he's somebody who wants to take him further to school and be able to learn, because he believes education can expand his opportunities. And I think that is what applies to everyone.
And that's the reason why Wambua is here. Wambua, you say by virtue of what happened during your times, you're not able to access education as much as you have wanted. But sasa mtu akikuambia sasa mimi nalipa kila kitu. Na waambie watoto wako free, you would jump onto that.
Yes. I'll be okay. But on the other side, I would like to come on my realities now. In this country, we have a leader who is the president. Do you know that the Bible fights for and puts security to president? In Romans 13, verse 1 to 7, says, everyone should submit to the governing authority, for there is no authority except that which one God has established. The authorities that exist are being established by God. That's why you should honor, not because of possible punishment, but because of conscience. And then downwards, it says that that's why you pay taxes. So pay everyone what you owe them. If tax, pay tax. If revenue, pay revenue. Is it? Because the authorities are brought by God to punish people. Which means that if we as a country of Kenya, if we become good to the Lord will give us good king, good president. So which means in every consequences that we are facing, it is because of our deeds.
So we've been bad-mannered before.
We have been punished by God through this king. If you read Romans 13 verse 1 to 7, it has all that. So this bad, and we can see that it is a tough king. It is because of us as a nation. On the other hand, when Israelites, King David wronged, the Israelites faced that. waliumia, lakini wanaumia kwa sababu ya dhambi ya mfalme.
So sasa, what is happening? Are we suffering because of what we did, or are we suffering because of what the king has done?
According to my views,
Yes.
we as Kenyans, we are evil, not the king.
We are the ones who are evil, not the king.
When we become good in the sight of the Lord, God cannot allow any bad king to be on us. Okay? God can never allow that bad king.
Okay,
Even if he tries to steal votes, he cannot make it.
Let's look at it from this perspective. A country like Saudi Arabia,
Yes.
from my perspective, Saudi Arabia, if you see what they do to our daughters, that's a wicked nation.
Yeah.
But Saudi Arabia is a very prosperous nation.
Yeah.
It's a country where, I mean, in terms of resources, in terms of management of resources, in terms of, you know, just, it's a prosperous nation. They don't know God the way as Kenyans we claim we know God. They are wicked, they do their things, but they are well. Sisi, we claim we know God, but why?
Thank you.
So
Thank
what's
you.
happening
Thank
here?
you. Thank you because of this question. It is very much good. You are making me, because I myself, I'm a preacher by profession. Not by school, but by reading the Bible throughout the years and praying. When you look at Noah there, when he came out of the ark, he had 3 children, Ham, Shem, and Japheth. And then when Noah planted the vineyard, he made and drink, and then he was
Don't bring up the aspect of the guy saw his father naked and so he was
No,
Fred, I think
what I was trying to tell you.
that one won't buy.
Fred, I think on this,
Yes.
you have to differ with my brother
Yes.
Josephat. Let us face reality,
Yes.
Fred. Every action has got its own consequences. Whatever problem we are facing now as a country, it's our own creation. And I will not be persuaded to bring the spiritual aspect on it. Because let us face fact. President Ruto, we voted President Ruto in this country. In our mind. Okay, we were just senses intact.
Yes.
The problem we are facing in this country, as far as the leadership of this country is concerned, is that we vote with emotions, tribe, and along our party of preference. That is what we need to change as a country. I've said it time without numbers in this show that if we are going to vote a leader, let us not vote someone juu ni Mjaluo na mimi ni Mjaluo. You being a Luo and you are the president will not help me individually. If you being a Luo can help the entire nation, I will not vote for you because you are a Luo, but because you are a man or a woman of integrity who can solve the problem we are facing in this as a country. When we were voting in President William Ruto, President William Ruto was not voted in because he was the best at that time. But President Ruto was voted in as a result of our emotions and hatred towards another person. This is something that we should not do. Just because someone think that Uhuru and Raila are not good, now we need to vote Ruto to punish Uhuru. Instead, the person we were intending to punish, who was President Uhuru Kenyatta and Raila, are busy enjoying themselves, and who were punishing them are the ones suffering. Today, as we speak, I can see some group of leaders are also using the same tactics, and Kenyans are falling to the same trick. And they will fall for it in 2027, repeating the same mistake. So let us take Kenyans.
Voting against somebody because you hated.
Exactly. Yes, I don't need, as someone who comes from Nyanza region, I know the Mount Kenya region voted for President Ruto. A very big percentage.
Yes.
Okay, today as we speak, Ruto is busy crisscrossing Nyanza region trying to lure Luos into his own political arrangement. Now, I don't think it will be more reasonable enough for someone, let's say from Nyanza region, to say, let us vote for President Ruto to punish Kikuyus. Who are we punishing? We are punishing ourselves. Let us vote someone because this someone is credible and integrity enough. Someone that will help us solve the problem we are facing as a country, but not because he's come from my tribe or because of this party or because of this. That is the problem we are facing as a nation.
And that won't go away.
Let me tell you.
If I can...
It will go away, Fred. It will go away. Don't say it won't go away. It will go away because the youth of this country proven it in June 25th that they can go beyond tribe and party and political party politics to find something and do something. We are going to do it.
Tell you, if you look at what happened yesterday.
Yes.
Yesterday.
Yes.
As you're talking about, tribal and all that, there was a group of people from Western Kenya at State House.
And even from Siaya, leave alone even the Western Kenya.
And Siaya. Orengo had taken his troops there. So the thing is this. Western Kenya members of parliament went to State House to tell the president, when we look at how you are allocating these resources, infrastructure and stuff, you're taking it more to Luo Nyanza than us. And we are the one who put you in power.
That's why we are saying, that's why I am saying, and the same Kenyans out there who look beyond tribe lines, that in 2027, we will not need Ruto, Raila, Kalonzo, and the group. Okay? We don't need leaders who still continue to think that old age kind of politics that have been here for years and has not been helping us. Okay? We are going to need a fresh start. Okay? Today as we speak, we have opposition leaders, the Rigathi Gachagua and team.
Yes.
None of them have commented on the education system in this country. None of them. But they are here about preaching one term, Ruto must go. How is Ruto going will help our children to be in school? You just said here in this show, some few minutes ago, that you had a daughter during Uru's term, and now during Ruto's term, you are paying 17,000 in university. Today you are paying 145. Also, I hope they were in government universities, not a private, is it?
Yes, this.
Same institution, everything has not changed. Same course, maybe just more or less the same course, everything the same. But now what changed? Why are you paying more now? And you want to tell us that now we just need to remain with this politics, oh, Ruto must go, one time, oh, Mjaluo, Mkikuyu. My friend, we need to wake up and change and say now we need to take our country back. And we need to have leaders that think of Kenyans. I said it here last Friday, that Mimi as Matthew, before I was named Matthew, the moment my mom gave birth to me, I was first a Kenyan. Okay? Yes. And everybody, you Fred, before your mom and your dad come and think down and sit, now sasa huyu tutamuita babako ama nini, you are first a Kenyan.
Yes.
And to all of us, before I was named, I first a Kenyan. And we need leaders who will think Kenya first before we think of any other thing. But until we achieve that, we will have solved the problem we are having in this country. But if you still want us to go round and round, this tribe come up, join forces with this tribe to form a coalition to elect this kind of a person, then we are not solving anything, and we don't even have right to complain.
That's the ideal situation. But if you look at the way Kenyans have been programmed over the years, if you look at the way Kenyans have been programmed over the years, when I was coming here, I was in I took a cab.
Yes.
The cab driver is Kisi. And we started having conversation.
Yeah.
And let me tell you something. He's telling me this country is changing because Matiang'i is going to be the next president of this country. And if you can see, Matiang'i has already quit his job.
Fred.
So I'm telling you, on the ground,
Vitu ni different.
On the ground, things are different. On this panel here, because we are kind of you can call it the middle class elitists. We speak the way things should be. But on the ground, my friend.
Fred, just before Ngaira come in, Fred, I want to tell you just before I give Ngaira a chance. They say that it's only a fool who doesn't change mind. Okay?
Then we've not changed our mind from 1963.
And I don't believe
we have.
No, changing a mind doesn't mean that you have to change your mind. You can even change your mind now.
Yes.
Because since we are not fools, there is no any timeline as to when someone will change his mind. Okay? So if they say that it's only a fool who doesn't change his mind. And again, you know that they say that, and if you continue, if you are brought up, you'll only know that your mother is the best cook until you eat a food from another person. That's when you realize that they are better cook than your mother. The politics in this country from 1963 has been programmed along tribal line.
Yes.
Okay? That is the fact. For a very long time. But the youth of this country, the Gen Zs, proven it in last year during the finance bill demos that we can go beyond the tribal line. We can go beyond political parties. Meaning there is a chance for a change. And that's why we are saying,
so we address
coming
that.
2027, we are going to change, and we are addressing the change. And we are starting it now because we are not fools, and we will change our mind. If we've been having this problem again and again since independence, and we are still doing it the same thing, then we need to change, and we are going to change. And if we don't change, and I will repeat it again, Fred, we will lose the right to complain. And even the Gen Zs will not even complain of being jobless because they've lost that right if they can't change their mind. Yes.
Now, I see our time is really going fast.
Yes.
We have the IEBC in place now.
Not yet. You know, they've just been, the parliament has only cleared them.
Yes.
As nominees.
They still
have to be sworn in.
Yes.
But you see that process has been
that's
stalled.
a foregone conclusion.
Listen, there's a court.
There is a court that is supposed to come and decide.
Fred, Kenya is a country. Fred needs to move on and admit that things have changed.
Yes.
I was going to say I agree with my brother with Osonga here that things have changed. That today in this 2022 election, 1 million Kikuyus voted for Raila Odinga, something that had never happened before.
In fact, Kikuyus voted for Raila more than Luos because Raila managed less than 1 million votes in the entire
Correction. They were not voting for Raila Odinga. They were voting for Uhuru
Kenyatta.
But Uhuru was not on the ballot.
Uhuru was not on the ballot.
You know very well
Fred,
how the politics of this country
those of us,
playing.
and that is those of us who've been to Central Kenya before and campaigned in the other election cycles, people used to say even a picture of Raila Odinga alone was enough to scare a young man in Kiambu from the ballot. You understand? Now that they could come and meet him on the ballot and still vote for him, they voted for Raila Odinga. Things are changing. You see, it's going to be gradual. That's why even in countries, Fred, even in the UK and the US, right, they still have tribalism and identity politics. Because if you go to the UK, then you have the Scots people who are from Scotland. Then you have those ones that are from Northern Ireland, Irish.
Yeah.
They're the ones. The English now, England, Scotland, and Wales. All these, they are different groups and they speak different languages. In fact, they live in the villages. It's only in the London and a few other big cities like Liverpool and Manchester where you find big urban population. But the others live in the farms. You understand? And they have different cultures. But in the end, they try to come closer towards a similar ideology so that they can operate as a nation. The same happens in the US. That's why we have the blacks, whites, and Latinos, and many others. You understand? There's always a section of people in such countries that turn around things. That's why in an election in the US, usually, you have the red states and the blue states. Then you have those swing states, which are about 7 or 8.
Yes.
The reason why you have those swing states is because it's in those states is where you have a percentage of Americans that look at issues differently. You understand?
Yeah.
They are not tied to their two
Democrats or
ideologies.
Republicans,
Exactly.
yes.
So I could assume the reds and the blues are actually the tribalists of America. You understand?
Yeah.
Then that percentage of could be 10 or 20% of what you consider the swing states, usually are the decision makers. That's why I told you in Kenya, Fred, we don't need everybody to be nice. We just need a percentage of Kenyans, maybe 10 or 20%, which could be around 3-4 million people, out of, say, 25 million registered voters. That would be around 5 million if I say 20%, who then think the way we do, like me and Matthew and others. Fred, up until today, I've never voted for somebody from my region. Never mind, Western region has had big political players since Kenya became independent, and we've had them on the ballot. And we had even as recent as Mudavadi the other time on the ballot. But there was zero motivation for me to go into the ballot and vote for Mudavadi. And when they asked me, I told them, if you can be a minister at the age of 28 years, and 30 years later, you cannot show me even a road.
Yes.
Fred, what motivation do I have to show up and actually vote for you? You understand? So we are now beginning to have a considerable, substantial number of Kenyans who think almost like me. And I pray, I don't want us to reach 50. I just want us to be around 20 or 30% of those of us who think like that. Then we'll have around 5-6 million Kenyans who are independent. So it doesn't matter what the other players do. We can always tilt the number towards those that mean well. Because then it means you'll have two sides. And then we are able to see that is the side that means well. And when you put your hand there and you're able to tilt the results. It's going to change, Fred, but I wanted to say something else just quickly on the budget as we wind up.
Yes.
The education, the Department of Education in this current budget, the budget for 26 to 25-26 has been allocated 700 billion shillings. You understand? And it's a budget of 4.2 trillion shillings. When President Moi left, he left this country with a national budget of less than 700 billion. That means just in less than 20 years ago, 700 billion shillings is what the whole country needed to be able to cater for its cost.
Yes.
It's unfortunate that 20 years later, with only one element of that matrix having changed, which is population, because when you do budget allocation, Fred, you have roads, you know, you have lighting and energy. All those things have not changed because Kenya has not. There's nowhere in the map of Kenya, it has not expanded any other than that. You understand? Yes. And our budget is now 4 times, maybe 5 times the size of what we had 20 years ago. But you're still saying it's not sufficient to take care of our needs. It's not possible, friend. We have a challenge with the governance structure of our country, and I just pray that Kenyans are going to be able to hold this president to account.
It's if we put it in a layman's language, it's like you're living in the same 3-bedroomed house.
Yes.
2 years ago,
your operating costs were
50,000 was sufficient to take care of you and everything.
And you know, a very good example, by the way, of that house is that the rent still remains the same. Electricity and maybe water. The only difference is maybe you have a relative who needed help, and you've told you know you can come in, I can shelter you. So instead of a family of 5 or 6, you're maybe 8. So because there are 2 more people. But you see, the many of the factors that are considered your operating, they remain the same. You cannot be, and assuming that time you're earning 50,000 shillings. So that was just about what you are barely meeting your costs. But now God has been good enough to you. Your salary is at 100 or 150, and the only thing that has changed is that there are 2 more people in your house. How can it make it difficult for you to run that house? It's not possible, friend. Because the budget has moved from 500 billion shillings when Moi left to 4 trillion. That means 8 times. 8 times the size of budget. But now we still cannot afford education to be able to give free education to our students, and that even an allocation of 700 billion, actually
700 billion is more than the budget that
actually 701. The education sector has been allocated 701 billion, which is 28% of the budget of the 4.2 trillion budget, which means it's the largest allocation for this year. But still, we cannot pay for school. It's not possible, friend.
Where is that money going?
The money is going into the money is going into running those rogue state departments that we have, Fred. Kenyans have an opportunity.
We need to bring Wambua in.
Kenyans have an opportunity to be able to take care of
them. I would add many things, but in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 12, not only the teacher was wise, but he imparted knowledge to the people. Do you mean that there is nobody who is wise enough to save this country? In Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 14, that there was once a small city and just a few people in it. And a great and a powerful king rose up and began to build a huge city against it. Then one wise who was poor saved that city through his wisdom. But the teacher says that wisdom of a poor man is despised. Now, who is this strong king and who is the wise and the poor person? Yes, we have them in politics, in the government, in our democracy, in our politics, whatever it is. But they are not able to save the city, because if you cannot speak and get our voice that can threaten Ruto, then you are not able to save the country of Kenya. Like for example, this is watermelon, whatever you are saying, the kingpin of ours. He has no voice. He is not able to. He's not even to push. He's not even able to push Mr. Ruto, and the Ruto cannot even waste time fighting with Mr. Kalonzo. So we just need somebody who is wise and knowledgeable enough to save the country, and powerful like Mr. Mzee Raila, although he's like retired. We just need someone. Something we can hold hands and tell him that go ahead of us, we shall support you.
Now, you've spoken well. Because of time, I need to switch this. There is something that happened in the course of the week. If you can remember, your friend Okiya Omtata.
Yes.
During Uhuru's term, he had gone to court seeking to have the national debt register made public. So that it's analyzed, audited, and Kenyans can know what monies were borrowed by who and where the money went.
Yes.
And if the money did not go into helping the public, then that money, the public is not obligated
to pay. Yeah.
Something happened in the course of this week that Central Bank was enjoined in the case in support of Okiya Omtata. So it looks like, okay, read the politics.
Yes.
It's a good thing. It's a really good thing that Central Bank has joined Okiya Omtata saying we need to see the public debt register. Let's know who borrowed it,
Yes.
Borrowed the money, where the money went to, and whether they benefited the people of this country.
Yeah.
So that has happened now.
Yes.
The case they have taken it back to court. It's a good thing, isn't it?
Yes, it's a good thing because at least by the end of the day we can know what are we paying for.
Yes.
You know, if it is left blind the way it is now, then maybe we can pay loan for someone who just decided to develop his own property. So I think it's a very good thing, and for that I support. That's why I tell you, Fred, that there is room for change.
Do you
and
think it's going to bring up the desired result? We've heard of the Kimurera Road.
The desired result now will depend on who is going to implement it. Yes, because even when the laws has made their decision, then there has to be someone to implement such kind of decision. So it will be now basically upon who is going to implement it. And this comes back to the leadership, because now this is what we are talking about. If we have a transparent leaders and a transparent government, then they won't have any problem making clear the number debts, who are we owing what, this money was taken to do this and this for Kenyans to know. Because by the end of the day, this is not a private loan, Fred. This is a public debt, and it is good for the public to know. Okay? It's only good even in our families, Ngaira. If you take a loan of 1 million, then at some point you have to discuss with your spouse and tell him, Mama, this is what I'm taking and this is what we have to do. So that it become a family loan, not an individual. By that, you will not have so much stress.
Yes.
But now if you decided to do things secretly, si utakufa nao peke yako. So I think to us it's a good thing.
Yes.
But I want to say this just before Ngaira come in.
Yes.
Fred, I'm speaking on behalf of the 8 million Kenyans minus the Gen Zs. The 8 million Kenyans who did not vote in 2022.
Yes.
Plus the support of the Gen Zs that I'm telling you Kenyans, that Fred, we are going to this country have to change. And even as the Okiya Omtata battle it for the government to make clear our debt and known. We need, after the court have ruled it, we are going to place a government that will have transparency, that will tell us this is what we are doing. And I believe that the 8 million Kenyans who did not vote last election are still here and are still registered voters because they didn't have a reason to vote in 2022. We Kenyans, we are going to give them a reason to come out and vote in 2027.
Well, you know, Fred, by the end of this financial year, our national debt will be clocking almost 11.5, maybe heading towards 12 trillion shillings.
Yes.
By the time when President Kibaki was living in 2013, we were just under 2 trillion shillings, I think 1.8 trillion, something like that. That means over the last 12 financial years, we've borrowed 10 trillion shillings.
Yes.
That's what we've borrowed from them. If you do just simple mathematics, 12 million minus 2 million. So the government of Kenya has, over the last 12 years, borrowed 10 trillion shillings. Treasury has allocated and paid almost 10 trillion shillings in terms of paying debt, but we still owe 10 trillion shillings. It just doesn't work.
So it doesn't make
It just completely doesn't work. You don't need a mathematics, because it's very simple. You know, debt is the first expenditure of the national government in every financial year. So it's the first thing you can find on records. Even if you have a big data, you know, the first data you can never miss it is the first expenditure that you do as treasury. Treasury has paid almost 10 trillion shillings over the last 10 years. You understand? But you see, and yet it has borrowed 10 trillion. Imagine. Now it means somebody has stolen our money, Fred. Somebody has our money, and I think Kenyans...
We are paying somebody's loan.
Fred, the reason why, and you said you read politics, the reason why they're bringing this up is because a huge chunk of that debt was borrowed during Uhuru's time.
Yes.
The people who were borrowing that money, or at least had the mandate to borrow that money, are out of government. And they're part of the people who are being rumored to be planning to fund the Matiang'i and other candidates, the Mulima guys. And those Mulima guys are fully aware of it. You remember the question of the Eurobond?
Yes.
The Auditor General, a patriot of this country, Roberto, somebody Ouko, the Auditor General, remained steadfast in his opinion that there's a certain chunk of the money of the $2 billion that was borrowed abroad that never set foot here, which is against the Public Finance Act, which is criminal in many ways, because all public funds must go to the consolidated fund before they are disseminated to the various state departments. So for anybody to go to Europe or to go to the US and get hold of public money, bank it in a private bank for a short-term fixed deposit, to a short-term fixed deposit account, and benefit off it, whatever percentage they get, 5 or 10%, and then use the money to pay a certain national interest cost over there without going through parliament, deserves to go to jail. Those who did that are roaming around this country, and others are somewhere in Europe, they're hiding. And I think the reason why they're bringing it, that's why you say it's interesting to see the central bank being enjoined, is to now truly bury these people. You understand? Because there is no way that we can borrow 10 trillion shillings, pay 10 trillion shillings. At least you should tell us, 10 trillion shillings. At least you tell us, they borrowed 10 trillion, the interest rate was at 30% or even 50%.
Or even
100%. This is what we've paid and this is why we are here. You understand? And nobody can borrow at 100% interest. So 5, 6, maybe 10%. So we should be looking at 10 trillion over and above 110%. Maybe it's around 12, 13 trillion shillings is the money that you're supposed to pay. And of that, at the very least, you should say we owe 3 trillion or 4 trillion. But if we still have a national debt at 11.3 trillion, it means we didn't pay. It means there's there's no money that we paid. And you know, I wish the opposition, and that's why I always agree with them.
And that's the reason why, love him or hate him, I think Jimmy Wanjigi,
brilliant.
Jimmy Wanjigi is brilliant.
Absolutely.
Because this is what he's been telling Kenyans. You don't have a debt. You took this, you've paid this.
Fred,
So
you don't need to go to school to do such a simple mathematics. And I think the reason why they're being enjoined to the central bank, it might be good for us as taxpayers to know where our money is, but it has a political angle because they want to bury the others. Because they are fully aware that the people who want to back Matiang'i have the resources to compete, and could be those the monies that were used, that were picked up from that particular regime.
And that's the reason why when Gen Zs went to the streets, the first thing President William Ruto did was to appoint a committee that included the LSK. And they were told, you go and audit the public debt and make it public. Because what you're saying, it's brilliant. You go audit the public debt, let's know. In fact, the thieves, the knaves that are walking around driving BMWs and Range Rovers, having stolen our money, should go to jail and their properties should be confiscated. It's a political thing, but it will work for this country.
So it's a two-edged sword. Exactly, but Fred, I think it's really good to be able to know that. It's just not fair. I don't know if you guys have taken time to go through the budget estimates. I have. Fred, there are so many critical cuts into those budgets. You know, like for example, all the universities that have been struggling with paying its operating costs, a lot of them have still not gotten their money. So you ask yourself, where is this 700 billion shilling? Not enough. Because that is an entire country budget. This is what Rwanda has as a national budget, is what we just have for the education sector alone. But we still cannot be able to serve it.
But don't you remember during the initial process of CBC, there was a cabinet secretary and a PS who paid close to 4 billion shillings cash.
It was the former long-term serving PS. Billion Kipsang. He admitted it in parliament. That is somebody that should be in jail. You know, Fred, parliament is what you call a quasi court. It also does some grilling, just the way like what happens in court, and it has some legal strength because whatever report that comes out of parliament, because it's a legal entity, can be used as evidence to go and prosecute somebody for his account. And Billion Kipsang admitted, they asked him, how did you pay that money? Because it was not being captured. It was not being captured on records as per the Public Finance Act. And then he gave some flimsy results that some of these, I don't know, he said they were casuals. There's a way he was saying that those people were supposed to be paid in cash, so we had to borrow in cash. But actually, the actual truth is that they were evading accounting because, you know, Fred, if you tell me, if you give me 10,000 shillings to disperse to 10 of your workers or 20 of your workers in your farm, and you tell me do it via M-Pesa, there's a way you can track all my submissions. But if you just tell me, if I just go with the money in my pocket and go to your farm, I can try and say, ikaze umefanya leo ni 180, and try to cut some 20 bob here, 30 bob here, and still go unaccountable. And even when they complain, it will be their word against mine, because it's not off record. And Bello Kipsang is the reason why he was retained as a PS. You know, he's one of those few PSs that survived when President William Ruto came in, and I'm not surprised that it's because he comes from the president's region.
We need to bring this to an end. I can see we only have a minute and a half. Your closing comments.
My comment is that let us start and watch about on what God has for us. Even if we ourselves we have been imparted that knowledge. Because it's not about the past, what they did, what Uhuru did, what Mr. Kibaki did. It means that knowledge that was in Mr. Kibaki is still in somebody today. Let us look on who is it and who is that we may support him. That's what just I have.
You're closing.
Fred, as we sum it up, I would love to say that it's only in Kenya whereby we reward corrupt leaders with a very lucrative job and even the highest elective positions. As we go into 2027 general election, I want to plead to Kenyans and more so to the Gen Zs and the youth of this nation that let us try as much as possible to take our country back. Our focus as it is now is on the presidency. But I want also to take this, let us also focus majorly on who are we going to elect as member of parliament. Because we've seen what our MPs are doing now. Nobody can be proud of the current parliament we have. Let us just be realistic. So as we focus on the president and who we are going to elect as the next president, let us also focus on who are going to represent us at the parliament. Because some of the most loopholes we have in this country come from the parliament. It is the parliament that approved all this government appointment. The 58 government departments Ngaira is always talking about. And even the PSS were approved by this parliament. If the parliament could now stand at their feet and say, no, Mr. President, we are not going to approve this, we will not have such kind of PSS now. But because we have kind of a parliament that does not even know who they are and what they are doing, we are in this kind of mess. Just to sum in conclusion, look at even the current, those guys who are nominated as the IBC commissioners. Are we sure that they are going to give free and credible election? And you ask yourself, in-law, and we have this lady who really admit that is a member of the UDA party. Not even to talk alone of Lutalala, who is a very close buddy of Mudavadi. You know, look at the entire thing. In fact, if you look at that commission, we were just talking with Ngaida that our very own Anderitu, who is the registrar of political parties, appears to be the only angel in that entire commission. Now you can imagine if Anderitu is the only angel, then what about others? Okay? So, and all this mess we are in is because of the kind of parliament we have. So I want to plead to Kenyans that as we are going into 2027 election, please our Kenyans, let us first look at the parliament we have and understand the powers and the privilege of that parliament and what a parliament can do into leadership and transparency of this nation.
You're closing.
As always, for me, I suggest keep urging Kenyans to stay rooted to what is happening in the country. The government of Kenya, I've always said, is not an NGO. It's funded by our taxes. We have the ultimate responsibility of ensuring that we cross-check government in case our parliament fails, and that is the only way we can hold these leaders to account.
Beautifully said. I'm very sure you've had quite a number of things. Some of them have made you go, some of them have got you, okay. So this country is in a mess because we are a mess ourselves. We voted the leaders. Like Wasonga keeps on saying, we voted based on our emotions and our tribal inclinations. And so we got what we deserved. If you take a thief from the street and put him in an office in a treasury, you would be a very foolish person to expect him not to steal. And so if he steals, well, what did you expect? So we need to think now and be selfish. Let's make sure we are voting people who are going to serve us, not us serving them. This country is ours. It's a beautiful nation with great resources, and we are a great people. Let's act like great people and get great leaders who are going to give us great results. All right? Have yourself a lovely morning.